Our subject this morning, a few words about happiness through simplicity. Happiness through simplicity. The culprit of our being unhappy is desire. Desire. Desire is behind all of our wants. And unfulfilled desire is the cause of unhappiness. And we will never be truly happy by fulfilling worldly wants. Because why? True happiness lies right within our own self. Our souls are naturally blissful and happy of nature. And so when we look to outward things, wanting this thing through desire and wanting that thing, fulfilling some perhaps, many not being fulfilled because of a multitude of wants. When we turn inward toward our own soul, there we will find true happiness. Because we are naturally blissful and happy. That's the nature of the soul. God is what? Ever-conscious, blissful existence. So let us realize that unfulfilled desire, which comes by our laying up so many wants and being unable to fulfill them, and even if we do fulfill them and attain a little pleasure, it doesn't last. And the memory of those wants comes once again. And if it is still unfulfilled or they are unfulfilled, once more we suffer pain. So let us realize that is not the solution. Fulfillment of desire, fulfillment of wants, the solution is right within our own self. Master used to tell the story, I know many of you know it, let us just go through it once, about the Musk Deer, who has musk in its navel. And after a while when it grows up, it smells the musk. And so it becomes frantic, hunting for that musk, and runs hither and yon, frustrated, hunting for the musk, until finally it plunges over the cliff, and the hunters catch up with it, and it is destroyed, when the musk was right within its own navel. And so it is with us. Happiness, true happiness, is right within ourselves, in the presence of God within. And we're searching for it as the musk deer, all over creation, so to speak. When if we would but turn our attention inward, there we would find true happiness. And so unfulfilled desire is the cause, and those unfulfilled desires are of three types: mental, or other material, mental, and spiritual. Just briefly, you know material desires, whether it's a new hat or a new automobile or this or that or that or this. There's no end to it. And so with mental unfulfilled desires, the little child, when he doesn't have his own way, begins to squawk. And he squawks until you fix him, so to speak. So with people, they're frustrated. They cannot fulfill those desires which they have for careers and all such things, artists especially, because the desire is unfulfilled and they suffer pain. But the spiritual unfulfilled desire is the worst, because that just beats at our very soul. Unfulfilled spiritual desire, where am I going? What's going to come after this existence? What's my heritage? You do not know it. The desire is unfulfilled. That you are a child of God, you don't know it. That's the greatest unfulfilled desire, that spiritual unfulfilled desire of just what you are, a child of God. And so realize these unfulfilled desires are the cause of unhappiness. Now, Master has written in the Science of Religion, I'll just quote a word or two, which expresses it better than I can say it in his Science of Religion. The more wants we have, the more difficult it is to fulfill them. And he goes on, the more wants remain unfulfilled, the greater the pain. Increased desires and wants. Increased desires and wants, and pain is also increased. So watch your desires, he used to say to me. I remember he got a new Cadillac, and I was kind of looking at it. He says, watch your desires. Watch your desires. So I dismissed it, because he never told me an untruth. So I was watching that. Then it goes on, this is the fallacy. If you remember this one point even in this talk this morning, seeking to fulfill wants first by creating them, and then increasing them, and then trying to satisfy them with the object of senses instead of lessening them from the beginning. That's where simplicity comes in. If we live a simple life and have the necessary necessities, not the unnecessary necessities, then we'll be all right. Because I'm sure God didn't want us not to have anything. He wanted us to have what we need, but He did not want us to forget Him by too many unnecessary necessities. That's the point which the Master brings out in this little book, The Science of Religion. And even fulfilled desires. Fulfilled desires, they give a little happiness, but as I said in the beginning, it does not last. Desire can give you both pain and pleasure. Unfulfilled desire gives you pain. Fulfilled desire gives you pleasure, but it doesn't last. You know, you get one thing, and what happens? You want something else. That's the law. And that goes on until you don't know where you are, and you wish you didn't have anything. Blessed, what is it? Be nothing, I think they say, which is so true. And in this, also in The Science of Religion, Master writes this, as desire leads to pain, it also leads to pleasure. In the first case, want involved in desire is not satisfied. And in the second case, want involved in desire seems to be satisfied. But is it? For he goes on to say, we all know that the pleasurable existence, the pleasurable experiences from fulfillment does not remain but dies away. And you watch and check yourselves and you'll find that it doesn't last. And then what happens? Not only that's bad enough, but then when the memory of it comes back and you want it again, perhaps you haven't got the money this time, then you suffer pain. So you see, it's a vicious circle. There's no end to it, this business of desire. And so let us do away with them. Do away with desires. Free our attention from the want. Because that unfulfilled want gives us pain. Therefore, to lessen the pain which we are all struggling to do, we first should do away with our desires and then the sense of want. Do away with desires and then the sense of want, because right within us is that which will give us satisfaction and peace and bliss, because that's our nature. And we should realize that we are children of God, and as such we are blissful and peaceful. Speaking about being happy, I remember one little instance. It happened quite a few years ago when we were down to Master's second temple in Los Angeles, and a lot of us were lined up on the platform ready to say a few words, so to speak. Master was with us, and we let this fellow speak first. I guess it's a good thing we did, or we'd never gotten out. But he started. He says the problem, the solution of life is to keep the corners of the mouth up. Keep the corners of the mouth up. Then he went on rambling along. Then he come back, secret of life, keep the corners of the mouth up. I saw a jackass the other day, and his ears were way down. And then suddenly they flopped up. Well, he looked different. He still looked like a jackass. And some of us looked the same even with the corner of the mouth up, like the jackass's ears. But still, it was better. I had to admit the jackass looked better with his ears up. And so people, this man went on to tell people, keep the corners of the mouth up. You can solve all the problems of life. Well, that went on, and I saw the Master talking to the Master of Ceremonies, and pretty soon he reached over and he pulled his coattail. The fellow turned around and scornfully looked, like to say, what's going on here? Kept right on. Keep the corners of the mouth up. Really, I was just busting inside, and I have 2 sore ribs yet from it. So he kept on. Then I saw them putting their heads together, and they scribbled something on a paper and had his hand behind him, put it in his hand, he took out. He says, they want me to stop, and I'm not going to. So then he kept on. Well, I saw the master and the master of ceremonies put their heads together again, and luckily on the platform, the pulpit, was a big bell and a knocker, see? Well, the little master of ceremonies, he was only a little fellow. He got up and he hit that bell, and the whole house, ha, ha, ha. And that ended it. Then he said, I guess I'm through, and he sat down. This was an actual happening, and I nearly died. I don't know. We all said a few words. We were waiting to hear the master, of course, and this fellow wouldn't stop. So I always remember, if I have any bad problems, keep the carnal away. And I think of the jackass, too. So, there you have the solution to this morning. Be simple. Be simple, but realize that your answer is right within yourself. Now going on, so we must first diminish the number of one's desires by living simply. That's the first thing. This is the answer to our question this morning. Diminish the number of those wants, otherwise you'll never be happy. And the second is to find the positive inner happiness of your own inner resources. Ideal. Then we would not be taken up with these desires. If we live simply and have the one great desire to find God within ourselves and know Him, then we would be truly happy, because there's no peace and bliss like the presence of God within you. There's no peace and bliss that will equal the knowledge that God is with you absolutely every moment of your existence, and that He will respond to you when you need Him, as the Master says. Live simply. Have the necessary necessities, but above all, find God. That's your answer to happiness. And to find that happiness, you must live simply. You've got to give some time to God, and if you're taken up with all these unnecessary necessities, there'll be no time for you to meditate and feel His omnipresence. These are facts. Let us not forget them. And so, bliss or happiness within us should be spontaneous. It's our natural makeup. It says in Psalms, the 5th Psalm, 11th verse, but let all those that put their trust in Thee rejoice. Let us rejoice if God is with us. Not go around with our corners of the mouth down, as we were talking about, but rejoice because the power of the universe, God Himself, who created all things, is in us, and we can talk to Him and feel His presence and contact Him. That's what it says in this psalm. Let them ever shout for joy, because Thou defendest them. Let them also that love Thy name be joyful in Thee. If you can but hear the cosmic sound and feel His presence in you, you cannot help but love God, because it gives you such assurance and peace and bliss. It's a wonderful psalm. So remember, that's our natural makeup. To be spontaneously happy, because we come right from God. We are Him, so to speak. His great consciousness is in us. You take little children, how joyful they are. They jump and run and do this and that, filled with joy, and sometimes cause trouble, but they're joyful. Why? Because they've just come over from being with God. They've just come over from being in the bliss of the ocean of God's presence, whether they knew it or not. And when they're here and they're young, they're joyful and happy. Later on, they get bogged down with all sorts of desires and marriage and all sorts of things. They forget that. But naturally, spontaneously, we are peaceful and blissful, because that's the nature of our soul. Our Master was that way. He was very, very happy. He could be stern, all right, but usually he was joyful and spontaneously happy, and you felt that because it flowed through him. The presence of God flowed through him. His own master said, Sri of Chesuji said, as you remember, he said, this life is not a funeral procession. Let us be happy, but let us not forget God in so doing. And if we do not forget God, we will naturally be happy because God is bliss. God is bliss. And so do away with desires. Do away with desires which leave us nothing except give us nothing but leave us high and dry, stranded. Because they cannot fulfill that which is right within yourself. Do away with those desires. And the second thing is, know your inner resources, which is the presence of God right within you. And if you have that, you will have no trouble with the question of happiness. I don't care how bad your body is, how diseased it is, how unsatisfactory your situation in life is. If you have God, you won't care, because God is supreme. And His bliss is what we are and what we must once more recapture, our oneness with God. Lord Shankara said these beautiful words, ultra-sensual bliss is extremely easy of attainment. Imagine it. This peace of the soul, cosmic peace, true happiness, he says, is extremely easy of attainment and is thus far superior to sense delights which always end in disgust. Cannot help but end that way because the nature of duality is pain and pleasure. Never a constant happiness or bliss. You cannot find it there, but only when you turn inward toward God. And then you will recapture that which is your natural birthright, peace and bliss of God. If you live simply, you'll have time for that. And having that, you will have everything you need. All fulfillment, peace, bliss, all content. Our Master has this to say about happiness through simplicity. You must learn to know what is necessary for your life, and not to seek so many extra things. He says, I always have faith that whatever my needs are, God will take care of them. And I have been very careful to discriminate between needs and unnecessary necessities. And now at this time of year when we are honoring the great Larry Marsha, let us close this morning by reading a few of the great Larry Marsha's words from the Master's autobiography of a yogi. Larry Marsha says, remember that you belong to no one and that no one belongs to you. Reflect that someday you will suddenly have to leave everything in this world. So make the acquaintance of God now. The great Guru told his disciples, prepare yourself for the coming astral journey of death by riding daily in a balloon of divine perception. Through delusion you are perceiving yourself as a bundle of flesh and bone, which at best is a nest of troubles. Meditate unceasingly that you quickly behold yourself as the infinite essence, free from every form of misery. Cease being a prisoner of the body, using the secret key of Kriya Yoga. Learn to escape into spirit. And so happiness comes through living simply, that we have time to know God within us, which is our greatest inner resource. Know Him by following the techniques of one who knew God, our beloved Master. Having Him, you will have all happiness and all fulfillment.